This is Mr. Ashton going through the Mathematics Unit 2 Calculator Allowed intermediate paper from the November or the autumn of 2017. Okay, so first page, as always, is our formula list. We may need that, we may come back to it, but we probably won't need to use it. Okay, then, question number 1 says calculate 8% of £3.25. Now, the first thing you do not do with this paper or this question, because it is the calculator paper, is you do not find 10%. That is an absolutely great way to solve it when you don't have a calculator. When you do have a calculator, I'd expect you to say, well, 8% means 8% out of 100 times by £3.25. And I literally just write that into my calculator. So 8 over 100 times by 3.25 comes as 0.26. So my answer would be 26p. Okay, but absolutely fine to leave it in pounds and pence still. Okay, the next question says, evaluate 0.65 times by 280, take away 2/9 of 513. Okay, now literally all you need to be able to do here is know that of, if we find a percentage of, use my highlighters here, that just changed to times in my last question. That's exactly what it's going to change to again here. So that 0.65 times by 280, take away 2/9 of, meaning times, 513. And I can literally just stick that into my calculator all in one line. So 0.65 times by 280, take away 2/9 times by 513, press equals, and my calculator will tell me it's 68. Okay. Now what this was really looking for you to understand was your order of operations, to say, right, we've got timesing, we've got takeaway, and we've got timesing. So if I think of the word bidmass, we've got timesing, so multiplying, we've got subtracting, and we've got multiplying again. So the things that need to be done is this here and this here, because they're the timesing, and then take them away. Now if I go and put brackets around that on my calculator, just like I did with my answer because of bidmass, realising to use my order of operations, and I press equals, I still get exactly the same answer. I get 68, and that is because my calculator has got bidmass built into it. When it looks at that long statement there, it knows which orders of operations to do as well, okay? Which is great in a question like that, but sometimes it can catch out in other things. And the next question here says calculate what is 3.5 squared, take away the square root of 8.6. So you literally write it into it. It looks identical, 8.6, sorry, identical to what you have there. You press equals, SD it to get your nice normal number. And my top tip would be to write all of that out. If you write all of that first, you are definitely going to get one of those 2 marks. To get the second mark, to round it to 2 decimal places, line will go there after the second number because it's 2 decimal places. Rule is now, if that's 5 or bigger, that's going up 1. It is 5 or bigger, it's 7, which is bigger than 5, so that's going to change to a 2. If it was 4 or smaller, it would have stayed to 1. But it is 5 or bigger, so it'll be 9.32. And I've put in brackets 2dp to show that I've rounded it. Okay then, the next question over the page says, what is the difference between the following times? 7:30 on the 1st of November and 13:20 on the 3rd of November. Now what I'm going to do to work this out is draw a bit of a timeline. So I'm going to put this time here, and I want to get to eventually, what's it, 13:20, I didn't mean to put a 0 there, 13:20, and that is 1st of November, and this would be the 3rd of November. Okay, now there's certain numbers that I'm looking for. One of those is 12 at night, and one of those is midday, 12 in the day. And to get there, I'm just going to take this up to the nearest hour, so I'm not dealing in 30 minutes. So if we get to 8 a.m, I've added 30 minutes so far. So add 30 mins. Now I'm looking for 12 midday. So that'd be midday still on the 1st of November. That has gone from 8 to 12. That is adding 4 hours. And then to get to midnight, so 000, now we're into a new day. That would be the 2nd of November. I would have added 12 hours. And then I want to get to 13:20 here. Now what I'm going to do is add a whole new day, a whole 24 hours to get to the 3rd of November. So to do that, I've added 1 day. And then to get from midnight to 13:20, I've added 13 hours and 20 minutes. Okay, so what I'm asked to do now is to work out exactly how many days, hours, and minutes there was between this time. Now, I've broken them up into nice sort of bite-sized chunks. I've got 30 minutes, 20 minutes. That's all my minutes so far. So I can safely say that 30 minutes out of 20 minutes is 50 minutes. There's no overrun into that, so I can safely go and write down that. I've then got how many hours? I've got 4 hours and 12 hours and 13 hours. So how much is that altogether? 4 and 12 and 13 comes to 29 hours. So in total there, I've accounted for 29 hours. Now there's a problem that 24 hours makes 1 day. So really, this is equal to 1 day and 4 hours. And the only other thing that I had here then was 1 day. Okay, so altogether, I've got 1 day and 1 day there. So 2 days and 4 hours and 50 minutes. Okay. Next question, part B. Just refresh the camera so it looks nice and clear. Okay, it says divide 16 hours and 20 minutes by 5. Now, the problem, or what they expect you to do here is say 16.2 divided by 5, work it out and get the answer 3.24 and say that's 3 hours 24. That's not true. And the reason why is that 20 minutes isn't 0.2 because minutes go out of 60, so 20 out of 60 as a decimal would be 0.3 recurring, okay? So what I'm going to do is actually change my hours into minutes and have them all in 1 unit of time. I know that there are 60 minutes in 1 hour, so in 16 hours, if I do 16 times 60, I know that there are 960 minutes, plus another 20 minutes, because it said 16 hours and 20 minutes. That puts me onto a total of 980 minutes, and it wanted me to divide that by 5. So if I divide that by 5, 980, not 981, divided by 5 comes to 196 minutes. Now, to get from that, I know that 60 minutes are in 1 hour, so 120 is 2. 3 hours would be 180, which would then be my hours, and then 16 minutes would be left over, okay? Other ways you could have done it was 16 point, and then the recurring that I showed you at the start. Although, where is the recurring dot on here? I don't actually know where it is on my calculator. The other one I knew. Oh, well, I can't even show you that way because I don't know where the recurring dot is. Nope, still can't see it anywhere. So that would be the best way to do it. You could do 16 divided by 5. And that tells you that's 3.2 hours. So there's your 3. 0.2 of an hour times by 60 gives me 12. And then add on the 20 minutes. I don't know. I'm going to stick with the first way that I should know. I think that's the best way. Okay then, question 3. It says, a number is to be written on a blank card. The mode and the median of all 7 numbers are both the same. Find one possible number that could be written on the card. Now, the one thing I'm going to say is that if we're working with median, then what we need to do is rewrite these numbers out from highest to lowest, okay? So I'm going to write down here the lowest number. I'm going to write up here the highest number. The lowest number, 5, followed by 9, followed by 11, followed by 18, by 20 and 23. Okay, now at the moment the median would be in the middle of these numbers here. So I'm going in the middle of there, cross those two off, cross those two off. It is in between 11 and 18. Now we're told that the median and the mode are the same. Now, if we're to have a mode, that means that we must have 2 of the same cards, okay? Now, this is where, if I'm adding in a 7th card, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 numbers here, then this is my 7th card here. This is going to be where the median is. Now, I'm told that the mode and the median are the same, so this number here needs to be the same as the one that is there the most. So it would either be 11, because then 11 would be in the middle, and it's there twice, or it could be 18, so we'd have 18 there twice, so that would be the mode, and 18 is in the middle. So you have to choose either 11 or 18. I'll just choose 11 as it's the first one I wrote down. Okay. The question underneath says, one extra number is added to the following list of three numbers, 6, 8, 13. The mean of the new list is one less than the mean of the original three numbers. What number was added to the list? Well, without further ado, if we're told that we're told these numbers here, and it says about the mean of the original three numbers, let's go and work out the mean of the three original numbers. So let's do 6, add 8, add 13, add all the numbers together, divide by how many there are, and that will tell us what the mean is. So 6, fraction button, 6, add 8, add 13, divided by 3, tells me the answer is 9. So that is the original mean. Okay, now in terms of my next list, I'm going to add a number to it. So I'm going to do 6, add 8, add 13, add another number, which I don't know what it is. So I'm going to use x. I'm going to divide by how many numbers there are. So I'm going to divide that by 4. And that gives me an answer that is one less than the mean of the original. So 1 less than 9 would be 8. Okay. Now, for all four of these numbers to add up together and then divide by 4 and give me 8, effectively, to get rid of that divide by 4, if I times both sides by 4, I know that all of those numbers must have added to 32, because 32 divided by 4 would give me the 8 there. 6 add 8 add 13. 6 add 8 add 13 is 27. So 27 add something gives me the answer 32. 27 add something gives me the answer 32. So now we have to work out what that is. So if I take 27 off both sides, I will find out what my number was. So 32 take away 27 gives me an answer of 5. My missing number, or the number that was added, was 5. Okay? Okay then, question 4a. It says, how would the direction due west be written as a 3-figure bearing? So, in terms of what you expected to know here, is you're saying never eat shredded wheat. Never eat shredded wheat. And in terms of bearings, they always measure from north, where is 0, 90, 180, 270. It's got to be in 3 figures. There it is, 270. Okay. Part B, have a quick read and I'll start going through it. Okay, it says there are 360 degrees in a full turn. A pointer is facing due south, is spun clockwise through 3 3/4 full turns. In which direction is the pointer now facing? So again, using never eat shredded wheat, never eat shredded wheat, we are facing south, so we're already here. We do 1, 2, 3 full turns back of facing south, and then 3/4 of a turn. So 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. We're back to facing east. Okay, so then the full 3 turns would do back at south, and then the 3/4 would take me to east. There. Okay, and then the next one underneath, it says part C. Just make sure it's nice and level on the screen. It says, what is the bearing of point P from point A? And the most important word here is from point A. So from point A, we measure from north clockwise until we hit the line where P is. We already know we've gone 180 degrees there. Through another 40 would take me to 220, which is the first answer there. Okay then. The next question, now I said we may need to use this page, we may not. The formula tells me what the area of a trapezium formula is. It's a half of A plus B. Now looking at what A and B are, there's A, there's B. These are the parallel sides, usually the top and bottom, but not always, but that's what we usually see. And then H is the perpendicular height, which makes a right angle between those two there. Now we look at our trapezium here, and it looks pretty much the same. It just looks like it's upside down to me. Now, in terms of the parallel sides, this would be 1, so that's going to be A. This would be the other, that's going to be B. And then this one here at right angles would be the height. There's no tricks to this, it's just as straightforward as using the formula. So it's a half of the parallel sides, that's 8.2 plus 17.3, times by the height, so times by 9.4. And literally, that's going to go into our calculator. That's all I have to do. So a half, fraction button first, you could put in 0.5 there if you wanted to, plus 17.3, close your brackets, times by 9.4, gives me an answer of 119.85, and that would be centimetres squared, which I think tells me to give in my answer, so that would be worth one of those 3 marks regardless, okay? Okay, then over the page to question 6, it says, express 54 as a percentage of 129. Give your answer to the nearest whole number. Now, to work that out, it is literally like getting 54 out of 129 in a test. To do that, you'd say what you had out of the total and then times by 100, okay? That's all you have to do. What you got out of what you had to the right of that times by 100 gives me an answer of 41.86046512. As I said before, write out the whole number that your calculator gives you, and then you would round that to what they've asked you for in the question, which is the nearest whole number, so that would be 42% to the nearest whole number as they've asked for. Okay. The next question says share 25.8 in the ratio 5 parts to 1 part. So what we do is work out the total number of parts. So we add together the ratio. 5 add 1 gives me 6 parts in total. To work out what 1 part is, I do 25.8 divided by 6. So 25.8 divided by 6 gives me an answer of 4.3 for 1 part. And then we put it back into the ratio. Well, that's really easy for this bit here. That is 1 part. So I know what this is. That's 4.3 there. But this was 5 parts. So I need to do 4.3 times by 5 to get 21.5. And if you add these two numbers together, you should get the original amount. So 21.5 add 4.3 gives me 25.8, which is what I had originally. Okay. Next question, number 7. It says the following cards spell out the name Ystred Gwynlaith. Okay. It then says, in experiment, the cards are turned face down and rearranged. A card is selected at random and the letter is recorded on it. The experiment is carried out 325 times. That will be important for later. How many times would you expect the letter Y to be recorded? Well, what are the chances? What is the probability of getting a Y? I've got a Y there and a Y there. I can't see anywhere else where there's a Y. So the chances of me picking a Y is 2 out of the total number of letters. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 2 out of 13 is my probability of getting a Y. To work out how many times I'd expect to get that, I multiply it by the number of times the experiment happens. So it's just 2 out of 13 times by 325. And that gives me, hang on, I plussed it, I should have times it. That gives me the answer of 50. I'd expect to get Y 50 times. Okay, then over the page, question 9 says that I will be assessed on the quality of my organisation, communication, and accuracy in my writing. AB is the diameter of a circle. So A to B is the diameter of a circle. With centre O and the radius O to A is 4.2. Now, if that's a radius there, this is also a radius here. So that's 4.2 centimetres. And we're told that ABCD is a square. So this shape here is a square, which means all of those orange lines that I've just drawn must be the same. Now, we know what one of those is by doing 4.2 add 4.2 or 4.2 doubled to get what, 8.4? Now, what I need to do there is just say 2 radiuses. I wouldn't normally do this, but because I'm being assessed on the quality of my organisation, I'm just going to explain where the answers come from. 2 radiuses, or 2 radii, I should say, 2 radius to make 1 diameter. The diameter equals 8.4 centimetres, which is also the side of the square. Okay, so now we know that must be 8.4 centimetres also. Okay. Now, in terms of writing one of my answers to a question that's being set on the quality of my organisation and communication, I'm looking to put centimetres in more or less every answer, okay? And don't just have calculations or numbers appear out of nowhere, just show where they've come from. So if I'm going to write 8.4 there, just show where it's come from. I have done that down underneath here, okay? Now, to work out the shaded area, if I work out the area of the square, that'll find too much area. It will include this semicircle here. So what I want to do is say shaded area, where you can't see what I'm writing, let me just move it. Shaded area is equal to square area, take semicircle area. Okay, to work out the square area, I want to do 8.4 times by 8.4 or 8.4 squared. Okay, either of those ways is fine, they're both the same way. Just move that so you can see what I'm doing a bit more clearly. Okay, and there, lovely. And then to work out the semicircle area, I need to use the formula pi times radius squared, but because it is a semicircle, I need to divide that answer by 2. So that answer needs to be divided by 2. And then I will literally put that into my calculator as it looks. So 8.4 times by 8.4, or 8.4 squared, times fraction, pi, brackets 4.2 squared over 2. And I get the answer, 42 point. Doesn't tell me a decimal to round it to, so I'm just going to do it to 1 decimal place, centimetres squared to 1 decimal place. Okay, then have a quick read of the question. I'll start to go through it in about 10-15 seconds. Okay then, so we're told here that the triangle ABC is an isosceles triangle with AB equal to AC. And they've helped me out by putting these useful marks here. Now what that also tells me is that this angle here, so 4 minus 3x, this angle must be the same as the one underneath this bit here. Those two angles are the same. Now what that is going to do is going to set up an equation because they're different angles in terms of what we're told us, but because of it being an isosceles triangle, I know they must be the same. So I'm going to write 4x minus 3, this angle here on the left, must be equal to the angle on the right, so x plus 48. Okay, to solve that, I'm going to get rid of the smallest x from each side. So I'm going to get 3x minus 3 equals 48. I'm now going to get rid of anything that does not have x on the left-hand side. So I'm going to add 3 to both sides to get 3x is equal to 51. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 3 to find out what the value of x is. So 51 divided by 3 gives me the answer 17. The angle x is equal to 17 degrees. So now I can go and work out actually what this is as a number. So 4 times x, so 4 times 17, and what was it, minus 3, is equal to 65 degrees. This angle is 65 degrees, and if I put in 17 plus 48, I should also get 65 degrees. 17 plus 48 is indeed also 65 degrees. I now know what these two angles are. They add up to give me a total of 130 degrees. So to work out the value, or to calculate the value of y as required, I want to do 180, take away 130, which would give me the answer 50 degrees, and I'd finally state y equals 50 degrees. Nice and obviously down the bottom there. Okay. Over the page are some multiple choice ones. Let me just move the camera so you can see a bit more clearly. Keep on nudging my camera so it's not very clear, sorry. There we go, that's better. Okay, it says 6p to the power of 6 times by 3p to the power of 3. And the first thing we can do is we can start to eliminate a load of answers, okay? First of all, if you look at the numbers, 6 times 3. It tells me clear as day I need to do 6 times 3. 6 times 3 is 18, so it cannot be that, and it cannot be that straight away. That has got 18, that has got 18, and that has got 18. So it could be those three just at first glance, but it definitely can't be those two. You need to know that when you multiply your indices together, it is the same as adding them. So I need to do p to the power of 6 times p to the power of 3. I would add together 6 add 3 to get 9. So I'm looking for p to the power of 9. So it has to be that one there. Okay. Similarly, if I look at this one here, it says, what is 3.4 divided by 13.6? Well, I don't know that like I did the last one, but I can put it into my calculator. 3.4 divided by 13.6 is a quarter. This has got to be something over 4. So it could be that, it could be that, it can't be that because it's not over 4, it can't be that, and it can't be that because none of those are over 4. Okay? That one there, if it was 0.25, it could be because a quarter is the same as saying 0.25. Okay, but it doesn't say that, it just says 0.4. Next, when you are dividing indices, you need to subtract the powers. So 8 take away 2 is 6. So I'm looking for the power of 6. It's this one here. Okay? Then for this one here, what I need to do is simplify what's on top straight away. So I add the powers together. So it's m to the power of 9 divided by m to the power of 9. Well, you'll notice that they are the same thing. Anything divided by itself. So for instance, when it's 3 divided by 3, it's 1. If it's a million divided by a million, that's still 1, okay? Anything divided by itself is always 1, okay? If you subtracted the powers, you get m to the power of 0, and anything to the power of 0 is also 1, okay? It's another way of proving it, but the nicer way to think of it is that anything divided by itself is 1. Okay, the next question is on trial and improvement. To do trial and improvement, you need to draw a table. So we draw a heading, and then we have 2 skinny columns, and a really big column in the middle. Now, I have this one as my try. I write my formula here, so x cubed plus 2x should equal 91, and I write a comment here. Okay, that's how I start them. I'm always going to try the numbers. It tells me just to test that they actually work, okay? So I'm going to try x equaling 4, and to do that, I'm going to change the x to open brackets and put 4 in the open brackets. So, into my calculator goes open brackets, cubed, plus 2 open brackets, and 4 is in each bracket. I press equals, I get 72. I'm supposed to get 91, so that is too low. It's lower than 91. I'm now going to try putting in 5. So I delete the 4 in both brackets and put in 5, and I get 135. But I must make a note of everything that I'm trying because I'll get marks this. That's too high. I'm supposed to get 91. That's too high. And that's where our first mark comes in, by getting an answer that is too low, then too high, and these are what we call consecutive numbers. Now, they're consecutive numbers because they were in the question, okay? But that idea is going to be really important in the future. Now, for the next one, the next number to try, if you are in doubt, the best place to try is bang in the middle between 4 and 5, which would be 4.5. But I can see that my answer, 91, is closer to 72 than it is to 135. So I'm going to try a little bit closer to 4. Not drastically closer, but maybe 4.4. So literally all I'm doing now into my calculator is using those same brackets, but this time 4.4 is going in both brackets. So into my calculator, notice I haven't pressed on or AC, and I can just use the replay button to delete the 5 and change it to 4.4. When I press equals, I get the answer 93.984, which is too high. If it's too high, I need to try a smaller number, so I will now try a consecutive smaller number. That's the important thing to do here. Do not jump around with your numbers. You have to keep these in what we call counter numbers, so 4, 3, 2, 1 if we need to go that low, or if we're going up, we go 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Don't miss any values. So into my calculator, I delete the second 4 and change them to both 4.3s, and I get the answer 88.107. That's too low. Now that is what the examiner's looking for it to go too high and too low. And then they check these numbers here come one after another. So 4 and 3 come after each other. So that would be my second mark. Now, my answer that I'm supposed to get is 91. This is 93.984. This is 88.07. So which one is closer? We don't know. We don't know obviously at all actually there at all. So what we're going to do is think of it like this. I've just tried 4.3 and that answer was too low, so I had to try a higher number. I had to try going up the number line And I have. I've tried 4.4 already, and that answer was too high. So that's telling me to try a lower number, so try down here somewhere. So what I'm going to do is try bang in the middle of 4.3 and 4.4, which would be 4.35. And an important note to make here says that find this to one decimal place. That lies. You always go to one more decimal place than it says, but only once. Okay, so I'm going to go 4.35. So into my calculator, I'm going to change the 4.3s to 4.35s. There. And I get 91.012875. Now that, only ever so slightly, is too high. Now as soon as the examiner sees me do this one to 2 decimal places, even though it says 1, I've shown that I understand that I need to go to 2 decimal places once just to check which one it's closer to. Because that answer is too high, I need to try a smaller number. So if I'm going to try a smaller number, it's got to be closer to this bit here, to this number here. It's got to be closer to 4.3. So my answer would be x equals 4.3 to 1 decimal place. You don't need to go again, but it's got, if that's too high, it's got to be somewhere lower than that, okay? Again, another way, if you're unsure, we've got a too low, a too high, and a too high. Which one is the odd one out of those? Too low, too high, too high. Too low, it will always be this answer. Okay? Okay, have a quick read of the question for number 12 and I'll start to go through it. Okay then, it says, triangular prism of length 2 meters is shown below. Now that's in centimeters, so we need to make sure we've got a consistent measure here. So that would be 200 centimeters. Okay, that'll be a trick they're trying to catch me out on later on in the question, no doubt. It says AC is 21 centimeters. Yes, I can see that. BC is 35. Yes, I can see that. And BAC is 90 degrees. Yes, I can see that. They've drawn all of that in the diagram. So irrelevant. We already knew all that stuff. It then says calculate the area of ABC. So A to B to C is this triangle here. Now to work out the area of a triangle, we need to do area ABC would equal base times height divided by 2. Now the base, we do not know. The height, we do. It is 21 centimeters. Okay, that is the height because it's at right angles to the base. We don't know that. But if you look at this, we've got a right angle triangle. Now, if we've got a right angle triangle and we know 2 sides and I want to know a third, I'd use Pythagoras' theorem to work out the missing side. Opposite the right angle is the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is given, so I will do 35 squared, take away 21 squared, and that'll work out the base, or what I'm going to call AB squared. Into my calculator goes literally what I've just said, so 35 squared, take away 21 squared, and I get 784 is equal to AB squared. I don't want to know what AB squared is, I want to know what AB is, so to unlock that, I will square root both sides. So the square root of that answer is 28 centimeters. So I've now worked out the base of this triangle is 28 centimeters. Okay, now to work out the area of ABC, I can just come back to this formula here. Area is equal to base times height divided by 2. So ABC area is equal to the base, so 28 times by the height, 21, divided by 2. 20, let's fraction it first. 28 times by 21 times by 21 divided by 2 comes to an answer of 294 centimeters squared. Okay. Over the page it says calculate the volume of the prism. Now you are told on your formula sheet to work out the volume of a prism. You do the area of your cross section, so this thing here that you see times by the length times by how far it goes back. So if I come to, just put that there, the area that I would see would be the triangle times by how far it goes back, 200 centimeters. Okay. So to work out the volume, I'm going to do the area, 294, times by the length. So it has to be in this consistent unit. So I'd use 200 because all of this was in centimeters. This was in centimeters squared. So I have to use centimeters there. Okay. So into my calculator goes 294 times by 200, and that would be 58800 centimetres cubed. It did want the units in my answer, so I had to show that. Okay, have a quick read of question 13. I'll go through it in about 20 seconds. Okay then, so it says find the answer to the LCM of 12, 18 and 24. Now, my top tip would be to always go and work with the top two numbers there. And if I can find the lowest common multiple of those and those, then I can more or less guarantee you that the smallest number will also work. And I know it's going to work because 12 goes into 24. So, for instance, the lowest common multiple of 12 and 24 is 12. So, if it fits those two, because 12 goes into 24, it must fit for 12 as well. Okay. What we're going to do is do multiples of 18 and multiples of 24. Okay. Now, all that means is the times tables of each, okay? And we've got to calculate for this, okay? So 1 times 18, 2 times 18, 3 times 18, 4 times 18, 5 times 18. If you don't know those numbers, literally, just in your calculator, 1 times 18, 2 times 18, 3 times 18, 4 times 18, and so on, okay? Don't go any further than 5. If we haven't got it in 5, we'll go back and start adding, but you should get it in 5. Again, the 24 times table, 24 times 1 is 24. Double of 24 is 48. 3 times 24, which I probably don't know, is 72. 4 times 4 times 24 is 96. And 5 times 24 is 120. Because I'm looking for the common multiple, the lowest common multiple, looking for a number in both lists, and I did see one that was in both lists. 72 is in both lists. There is no number lower than both of those. So the lowest common multiple of 12, 18, and 24 is equal to 72. The next thing I've got to work with is the highest common factor of 36 and 54. Now, factors are numbers that go into that, okay? So to do that, I'm going to write out the numbers that times together to give me 36. So I'm going to do 1 times by itself to start off with. Does 2 go into it? Yes, because it's even. That would be 2 times 18. Does 3 go into it? Yes, 3 times 12. Does 4 go into it? Yes, 4 times 9. Does 5 go into it? No, because it doesn't end in 5 or 0. Does 6 go into it? Yes, because it's a square number. It's actually 6 times 6. So if I do 36 divided by 6, I get the answer as 6. And then if I look for any other numbers, they start to repeat themselves. So I've got all of the factors of 36. Now that's probably easier than 54. 54 has got quite a few. We'll always start off by 1 in itself. So 1 times 54. We've also got 2 times 27. Does 3 go into it? Well, you probably don't know off the top of your head. So if you do 54 divided by 3, you find that it gets a whole number. So yes, 3 times 18 would give me 54. Does 4 go into it? If I divide it by 4, I get a decimal as my answer. So 4 does not go into it. 5 doesn't go into it because it doesn't end in 5 or 0. Does 6 go into it? Yes, it does. 6 times by 9. Does 7 go into it? No. Does 8 go into it? No. And then we're back to 9, so we're starting to repeat ourselves. Now, because we want the highest common factor, we are looking for the highest or the biggest number that is in both lists, and I can see that is 18, okay? There's actually loads of common factors here. Oh, actually, 4 shouldn't have been there. 6 is 1. Shouldn't have highlighted that. But the highest common factor is the biggest number that is in both lists, okay? So the HCF of 36 and 54 is equal to 18. So now I want to do the lowest common multiple, so 72, divided by the highest common factor, 18. So 72 divided by 18 goes into my calculator, and that gives me an answer of 4. Okay then, question 14a. It says rearrange the following formula to make x the subject. Now that means it wants x on its own on one side. The problem is at the moment it's in a bracket with the y, and there's a 2 outside the bracket. So what we need to do is start by expanding the bracket. That gives me 2x plus 2y would be equal to 7y minus 3. I now want to start getting the x by itself, so get rid of anything that is not physically attached to it first. So the 2 is, the plus 2y isn't, much easier to get rid of. So 2x would be equal to 5y minus 3. And then, to get the x by itself, I need to divide both sides by 2. And that would give me the answer x equals 5y minus 3, all of that answer divided by 2. The question underneath says, write down the nth term of the following sequence. So what we do is we check the gap between each of them. So what is the difference between 3 and 6? 3. Between 6 and 11, it's 5. And then between 11 and 18, it's 7. And then between 18 and 29 is 9. Now, the problem is all of those are different. And if they're all different, you go and check. We've just checked the first difference. I'll call the first diff. Check the second difference, 2, 2, 2, 2. If the second difference is the same, not if they're necessarily all 2s, works quite nicely for this one, but may not in the future. If the second difference is the same, we have an n squared sequence, okay? Now this means it's related to the square numbers. So above my sequence, I'm going to write out what n squared is. So 1 times 1 would be 1 squared. 2 times 2 would be 4 squared. 3 times 3 would be 9. 4 squared would be 16. 5 squared would be 25. What do I do from my n squared sequence to get to this number here? 1 to 3 plus 2. 4 to 6 plus 2. 9 to 11 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2. So my sequence would be n squared plus 2. Okay then, over the page, last but one question, or what we call the penultimate question. It says, diagram shows 2 right angle triangles joined together by a common side. All these numbers here are put into the diagram here. Then says, go and work out the size of angle x. And the size of angle x is this angle here. I'm seeing a right angle triangle, so I'm thinking straight away that I'm going to be using SOHCAHTOA. To do that, I know this side which is opposite the angle x, and I know this side is adjacent to the angle x because this side is the hypotenuse, because the right angle points at the hypotenuse. I can see that I know the opposite, but I can't underline the hypotenuse or the adjacent because I don't know either of them. That gives me an issue. I need to know, or want to know, at least 2 of the sides. So ignore this one for now. If we looked at this right angle triangle, I can see that I know 8, and I know that this one's joined to it. Now, of this triangle here on the left, this would be the hypotenuse of this one. If I can find this hypotenuse here using trigonometry, I would then know the adjacent of this triangle here. So I'm going to underline that hypotenuse. Opposite the 38 is 8 centimetres. I'm going to underline that because I know the side, I know how big it is. And the adjacent of this triangle here on the left, we don't know and we don't want to know. We're not asked to find this, okay? So writing out SOHCAHTOA on the left triangle, I'm just going to call it left, the left triangle. I know the opposite, so I cross out opposite in both of those. And I want to find what is the hypotenuse of the left triangle. If I know the hypotenuse of this triangle, I know the adjacent of this triangle, and I can go and find out the angle. So I'm going to cross out H there. And you can see that I've double crossed out SO, or SO, okay? Now that means that I would like to use sine angle, so sine 38 would be equal to the opposite side, so 8 centimetres, divided by the hypotenuse side of the left-hand triangle. Now to get that hypotenuse by itself, I'm going to times both sides by hypotenuse, as we don't like it being a denominator. So we get hypotenuse times by sine 38 is equal to 8. And now to get the hypotenuse by itself, I'm going to divide both sides by sine 38. So the hypotenuse would be equal to 8 divided by sine 38. Okay, now effectively what's happened, so those two guys have just swapped places, which is a trick you can use as long as you understand why you're using it. So the hypotenuse would be equal to 8 divided by sine 38. And that gives me the answer 12.99 blah, blah, blah. Now, that's fine for me. I'm only going to round it to 2 decimal places. I now know this side is 12.99, which is the adjacent side of the right triangle, of the right-hand triangle. So this one here now, I'm going to write out SOHCAHTOA again. I know the adjacent side of the right-angle triangle, and I know the opposite. So I'm going to cross out O's and A's. I find that I cross out TOA. Now that stands for tan angle. I don't know the angle. It's called X, is equal to the O, the opposite side, divided by the adjacent side, which I just found is 12.99 to 2 decimal places. To then get the angle by itself, I do tan minus 1. Or we press shift and tan to get that, okay? So into my calculator, I'm going to put shift tan and then 15 over 12.99. Okay, that will tell me what the angle is. Okay, so shift tan 15 over 12.99, press equals, and I get the angle is 41. No, it's not. I lied. It's 49.1. Just make sure you can see 49.1 degrees. Okay. Final question, question 16. It says, all members of a farming club have visited the Royal Welsh Agricultural Show. They all travelled to the show either by bus or by car. Let's make sure you can see the question again, but you should have the paper in front of you. Okay, one moment, I'll start carrying on going through the seconds. Okay then, so it says they all travelled to the show either by bus or by car. None of them visited the show on more than one day. The decision to travel by car or by bus was independent on the day of visit. So that just means it doesn't matter what they did on the first and second days. It doesn't make it any more likely they're going to go by car or by bus, regardless of what happened on the first day. The member of the club was selected at random. The probability that this member travelled by bus was 0.87. If that's 0.87, then I know what the car is. They have to add up to 1 as whole. So 0.87 and 0.13 would add up to 1. And similarly here, I can fill that in as being 1/3. And we've got 2 very nice marks there, okay? 2/3 and 1/3 makes 1. Those branches have to add up to 1. We're then asked, what is the probability that a member chosen at random was not one of those who travelled by bus on the first day of the show? Okay, now, this is a really, really tricky question. It says, what is the probability that the person chosen at random was not one of those who travelled by bus on the first day of the show? So, on the first day of the show by bus is this option here. So we are interested by bus, but on a different day. We are interested in not a bus on the first day and not a bus on another day. So in other words, we're interested in this option here, and this option here. Now, all of these options must add up to 1. Okay? If I go and find out what this is, I do 0.87 times by 1/3. Here I do 0.13 times by 2/3. Here I do 0.13 times by 1/3, and I'd find them and I'd add them all up. What I could do to make my life a lot easier, rather than doing 3 awkward calculations, is work out what this one is, so 0.87 times by 2/3, and just say, well, whatever that is, if I take that away from 1, that must be what these 3 guys add up to. So that's the way I'm going to do it. I'm going to say the probability is 1 minus 0.87 times by 2/3, which is equal to 0.42. Okay, now if you went and worked out what is 0.87 times by 1/3 plus 0.13 times by 2/3 plus 0.13 times by 1/3, you will also get 0.42. So that's what those three options added together will give you. Okay, I hope that was useful. If it was, please hit the subscribe button and you'll get access as and when I release any more videos. Thank you very much for watching.